You're a real estate agent, you live in one city, you're relocating to another city, and it's kind of like you're starting from scratch. Like, we talked about this earlier, but I really think that this is a conversation piece that a lot of agents that are kind of facing the same thing really need to know about. So Tracy, welcome. First of all, thank you so much for being here. But can you kind of let us know, let the people know that are watching, that are tuning in, what do you think? What would be like the main recommendations or a kind of course of action if you're relocating from one spot to another? What is up, everybody? Wanted to welcome you back and introduce you to Tracy Hsieh. She is part of the Level Up group. She is a real estate veteran, cruises the country, giving out, coaching about, presentations. And she's actually here today because we want to talk about a very specific topic. You're a real estate agent, you live in one city, you're relocating to another city, and it's kind of like you're starting from scratch. Like, we talked about this earlier, but I really think that this is a conversation piece that a lot of agents that are kind of facing the same thing really need to know about. So Tracy, welcome. First of all, thank you so much for being here. But can you kind of let us know, let the people know that are watching, that are tuning in, what do you think? What would be like the main recommendations or a kind of course of action if you're relocating from one spot to another? Go for it.
Awesome. Yes. So just a little bit of my history. Okay. I was practicing in Los Angeles for about 4 years before moving to San Francisco, where I was with my then fiance, now husband. And first of all, it's intimidating. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. The idea of setting up a whole new business in a different city. But it's a fantastic challenge, and it really exercises your chops as a business owner and an agent. So for me, I took it on and I said, I love the fact that I'm able to create something brand new. And the one thing that I said when I started, like, I'm going to do this the right way. The things that I wish I had done when I was a new agent in Los Angeles. So the top things I would do is pick one lead gen method and just stick with it. And for me, that was open houses. So I did every single month, 3 full weekends of open houses. If you multiply it, my first year I did 70 plus open houses, on average 3 to 4 hours every single session. And believe it or not, results were not instantaneous. And I would say out of my first year, I did maybe 12 deals or so, just from open houses. But everything has a compounding effect, right? So my second year, I still had the same schedule of consistent open houses every single weekend. If I couldn't make the weekend, I would do during the week. And my business has grown ever since then. And my metric for success my first year was a benchmark of making over $300,000. So every year it's gone above and above and above and above, whatever metric that is for you, for success. For me, that was it. But the secret was just consistent lead gen and just doing one thing and not trying to do a ton of stuff like, marketing flyer, just pick one thing.
Oh, I love it. I love that you say that. So it's actually something that I like to preach. It's a philosophy that I learned from Clay Collins, which is like the 5 1s, one traffic source, one conversion method, just sticking to just one thing for essentially 1 year, which is exactly what you did. And over time, and I think what most agents don't realize is that there's that compounding effect, alluding to Gary Keller's One Thing book. Like, hey, you do one little thing incrementally every single day, and it starts to add up over time. But I totally love what you just said. That is, you're talking my love language. I kind of want to know a little bit more, though. Like, when you essentially decided to, say, I'm going to relocate to San Francisco, was there a thought process behind, like, I want to work with this brokerage because of this culture, or I want to, put my roots down here because of whatever reason? Was that part of your process, or were you kind of just like, I'm an agent, I need to find as much open houses as possible, that's what I'm going to do? Like, what was the thought process behind that?
We talk about big why, right? Gary
Yeah.
Keller always talks about it. A lot of different coaches talk about it.
Mhm.
And my big why was I'm moving to San Francisco for love. Like,
Okay.
there's no reason for me to be here other than to follow my then fiance. And I
Uh,
need to show him that I can make some money. I need to show myself that I could do this. So that was my big why, big motivation. And I want to make this amount of money. So whatever that big why is for you, I think supersedes everything else. The brokerage you're with, whatever excuses to not do the lead gen, you've got to figure out what that big why is. And for me, it was to start a life with my now husband and to
nice.
create a legacy for ourselves, for our kids. It's something that I'm still working on that excites me all the time. I'm now into my kind of next evolution of my business. But when I tell people this is I teach courses on it and I just tell them it's very simple. All I did was pick one lead gen thing. They don't believe me. And they're like, how did you do every single one? Because I loved it. I mean, I really enjoyed talking to people, right? It's the first thing, but my big why was there. So I think that's the most important thing. If you don't know what your big why is, not a freaking problem. Figure out something else that will get you out of bed to do it
Mhm.
as you find what that big why is. I had a coach that told me it's okay to work towards someone else's purpose until you find your own. And I thought that was like, it sounded very weird, but a lot of people get super overwhelmed with not knowing their big why and realize, oh my God. And it's, you just, you got to figure out what that is for yourself. And so when it was raining, when it sucked to get up, when I knew for sure this house was like getting zero traffic because it had been on the market for 100+ days. It didn't matter. I was hitting my numbers. I was enjoying myself, and I'm getting calls from open houses that I did a couple years ago. So
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. I love the mention of why because actually the reason why we met was because I was giving a talk at a brokerage about ikigai, which is finding your purpose, which is essentially finding your why. So,
right.
totally dig it. Um, I kind of want to unpack the unsexy part of this, the unsexy work of it. Like that 1 year before you were able to pick up traction. I want to know a little bit about what was going through your mind in terms of like the pain, the agony, the frustrations, the self doubt. Because I'm sure there was a bunch of self doubt throughout that first year when you're trying to pick up that momentum. Like, talk me through what was going through your mind, and then tell me how you got out of it. Like, how are you able to overcome it?
When you love something, it's not a chore. And
Uh,
so for me, open house is about connecting with people. And it can be any business, even if I wasn't an entrepreneur in real
mm,
estate, if I was just working, getting a W-2 with a company, that was my driving, what really, really made me very happy.
uh,
So whatever makes you happy, do that. If it's cold calling, do that, whatever it is.
yeah.
I also was learning very quickly about the market itself. So it serves several purposes, right? To do this consistently is obviously to get leads, but also to gain knowledge about a completely different area that you don't know about. So every time I would talk to someone, every time I would go to a new house, I would make sure I would do a lot of research on the location, on the property, on all the various things. And believe me, San Francisco, we have our own purchase agreement. I think we have the largest disclosure package in any city in North America.
Oh
It's
yeah.
very, very complicated here.
I am very
So
familiar with that disclosure package, but that's I think a topic for another day. But yes.
yeah. So for me, I just took it on as a challenge, and I didn't let my mindset, which are letting a lot of new agents in new areas are like, oh, I can't do this, da, da, da. I still felt those ways, but I put it aside. I put it on a shelf, and I said, right now, I need to do this. And then when I have my downtime and I want to feel anxious and fearful, then I'll do that. But not right now. Not for these next couple hours while I'm at open house.
Oh, great answer. Great answer. I love that answer. It's just like, hey, it's not sexy, but it's for a higher purpose, essentially, right? Like you're doing this because you know that that's essentially your mission or your ikigai, your purpose, your why. I think it's all circling back to that, right? Um,
Yeah, it definitely is. And
okay.
do what your heart is telling you that you enjoy. If you don't enjoy open houses, you're not going to do it consistently. So if you feel like having a why is too esoteric, too nebulous of a thing, you don't have an answer. So what? Okay, that's fine, whatever. Don't figure out, what specifically that is. Just lean into what your heart is saying. And it's, again, very, touchy feely, but ultimately you'll be consistent if you do things you love.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so now I want to kind of pivot to more of the tactical side of things. How much of the same or how different was it in terms of working in one market, which is Los Angeles, and then going to San Francisco and working on that market? Did you feel like there was a big transition in terms of your tactical execution of going to these open houses and presenting to some of these leads that you've eventually turned into clients? Was there like any similarities, any differences that you found between the two from relocating?
Vast differences, yeah. In the strategy of LA, I was in the suburbs of LA in like Pasadena, San Gabriel Valley. So coming to San Francisco, very metro area, very tech savvy, very intellectual, very educated clientele here. I mean, it was this speed at things was just like bah, 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 incredibly fast. So I also had to adapt and mold myself into this clientele. So for example, my wardrobe. In SoCal, I would wear like open toe sandals and like bright colors. Here, we're all about like darker suits, more muted, all different variations of beige and black, I've heard. And like now my go-to outfit is like, I look like a museum art director. Language, I find I'm using a lot of the vocabulary that I studied, in high school to study for SATs. So abscond, it's, like things like that I'm using because my clientele they also use that kind of language, the cadence, the syntax, expectations, level of service, concierge type of service. I always say that I'm a consultant. I'm not just a real estate agent. They appreciate when, I've got resources for financial planners and trust attorneys. And real estate really is just a very small portfolio of high net worth clients, right? And so I've adapted my services to be so much more than just a real estate agent. My business has shifted a lot since I've come to San Francisco, and the vision that I had for myself when I first started in real estate is it's expanded. Like I can't even tell you where. You're going to see a lot of stuff happening, and it's a lot of effort, but also that I've been learning. And again, the big why is just like it's growing, it's evolving. So being open to that.
I love how you said that. You mentioned something about like kind of the purpose, and I allude to that, and it always goes back to the why, because I think sometimes when most agents hop into real estate, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong or challenge me on this thought, but I feel like it's because it's like, oh, I see people getting paid high commissions and they get a lot of money. I want to be one of those people. I want to be featured on, one of these crazy millionaire listing Netflix shows. Like, how much of that do you think is for show to sell people to hook them in real estate, and how much do you think of that is like real authenticity? How many agents are actually that you've conversed with and engaged with are actually living by that? I don't even know if you want to call it facade, because it might be the mission of some of those other agents. But I'm kind of curious, like, what is your thought process on that of the people that kind of jump in and whether they're working in Los Angeles or New York or San Francisco, they're in it because they just feel like it's a high check at the end of the day versus a real reason why. Is there any validity to that, do you think?
I used to feel guilty about saying, I used to make excuses in line, actually say, when someone would ask me that, saying, like, when did you get into real estate? Money. I saw other people making a crap ton of money, and I wanted to make that kind of money too.
Yeah.
And also in 2012, I graduated from college in 2010, and I was furloughed. If you remember this, 2011, 2012, the solar industry totally collapsed.
Oh yeah.
I was furloughed. And I remember going into the office, and they basically had told a third of the staff, "You're furloughed." So sorry. And I remember never wanting to feel that way. So that's another why. But truthfully, the answer why I got into real estate was money. And
Yeah.
I want to make
Appreciate it.
$100,000. Like back then, for a college kid to make six figures, like that was the thing to do. You want to get a job as soon as possible and make over six figures, right?
Yeah.
So that was my driving thing. And so the first couple of years it sustained me, and every year was growing. And then San
Mhm.
Francisco really exploded. And then once I reached over a certain number, I wasn't getting any happier making more
Mhm.
money. A
Yeah.
check for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever $1,000, it wasn't changing my level of happiness. I was deeply depressed because of that. And I said, well, why is this happening? If I'm making more money and more successful, doesn't that mean I should be happier, right? Um, so it's good to kind of get your fire going, but it's not enough if you want to have a long career and you want to build the business in a meaningful way. It
Totally.
really isn't enough, but you won't know that until you make that money. So it's kind of a weird thing is like,
Keeping it
for
real.
people like me at least, but maybe if you really, really love real estate and this is like your calling and it was your mission, that's fantastic. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
But I can tell you for most people, it's not. And you'll get to a
Mhm.
point where you have to evolve. And that's usually regarding mindset about why, about, a meaning, because many good agents here we make so much money.
Yeah.
And at the point, the rounds for me is all about self development and making sure that I'm a better business person.
Mhm.
So
On I love it. I love that answer.
it's a little
I love
choppy, by
you
the
for
way,
being
but
for
yeah.
so transparent about it because at the end of the day, I mean, it all boils down to the same thing. Like we all want that check, but the fact that the mentality evolved because the check didn't make you happy, I think is the key takeaway in that. And I love that because I can't preach that enough whenever I'm consulting or working with agents that like, hey, you can't get caught up in the check because at the end of the day, the check isn't going to make you happy. The purpose of why you do this is going to make you happy. That's what's going to bring you joy, whether you're, and especially if you're relocating or starting and stopping a real estate career because you're doing it for the money. That's really not really the reason why. The reason why is because you want to serve a higher purpose. I don't know. You're from LA. I hope you're a Laker fan. Were you a Laker fan before or were you a
Lakers
Clippers
all
fan?
the time. I get booed at all the time, especially from my husband. He's like, "Boo, Lakers." I'm like, "Whatever, dude."
Exactly. Yeah. No, because I hear about like Kobe's purpose. When Kobe got in the league, he just wanted to be better than MJ. He just wanted more chips. But then as his career evolved, his purpose changed, and it was to serve a higher purpose, which is he just wanted to teach. He wanted to pass his knowledge to the next generation. And I think at its core, to try to connect the two the best that I can, I feel like, hey, well, if you're in real estate, yeah, your main purpose initially is to make money, but at its core, that's not really the reason why. Reason why is to find what that higher purpose is and then put pressure on that and pursue that. But I love it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
There's
Okay.
seasonalities in your career, but you can't skip. If you're a normal person like me, maybe like you, Manuel, we're pretty like straightforward, skilled people, but I'm simplistic in that sense, and I had to go through all those motions. So whatever it takes for you to go over that initial, so that you can make the money, so you can figure out, what's next, what's the higher purpose,
Oh
for
yeah, no,
sure.
100%. That's another thing. You can't skip steps. I love that you said that because, oh gosh, yeah, there's so much validity in knowing that there is a path to take to get to where you want to be, and that path is never a straight line. And if you try to turn it into a straight line, it just ends up pushing you back a few steps. So yes, absolutely. Okay, I want to wrap up today's conversation because you really just extrapolated a whole bunch of stuff, and I think if I pick your brain anymore in this conversation, it might be overload for everybody else watching. So I definitely want to have you back, but I guess my final question to you would be if there's one last thing, if in this case, if there's one main thing that you want to kind of rehash or maybe touch on in terms of success in real estate, if you're moving to another city, what do you think that would be?
You're not alone,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a part of my success too was finding the right mentors and colleagues and friends and people to surround myself who provided insight and support, emotional support, opportunities, believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, who encouraged me, who gave different perspectives. You always have to have that inner fire within. It's your own business, so there's no substituting or, trying to figure out another way. But you can really help to elevate yourself. Oh my God, I see my husband in the back.
You're good. Don't worry.
It's something about, if you can kind of find that balance of honing that fire within, but also relying on others for that, I think is really, really fantastic. It's kind of like, again, in any given day, it's like this, right?
Oh, 100%.
And all you're trying to, and you want to find balance, between the, should I stop?
Oh, we're definitely leaving that in.
Oh yeah, you should leave. So this is the reason why I moved to San Francisco. It's for him.
Awesome.
I would not be here. And so yeah, even like finding, your partner. Like, so if you don't have like a live-in partner, it's finding, a mentor or finding someone else that can, be that support for you. So that when you're in moments of doubt and laziness and all those different emotions, they can help to level you out and bring you back up faster than you normally would if you were just by yourself. So
yes. I love that you said that. The support group, the mastermind group, whatever it may be, like that core group, your main circle of trust, I think is so vital, especially when you're going to a place where it's just really a bunch of unknowns. So good on you. Super stoked that you're killing it. And thank you so much for hopping on and having this conversation with me. I really, really appreciate it. So
definitely.
If you're up for it, let's definitely do it again. Sound good?
Yep. And I'll interview you next time.
All right. Perfect. Sounds like a plan. Okay. All right, Tracy, thank you so much again for hopping on with us. Really enjoyed the conversation with you. Can you please let the people know where to find you?
Yes. Hit me up on Instagram, Tracy Hsieh SF, or just give me a call, 415-815-8789. I live and breathe all things San Francisco and the Bay Area. Would love to hear from you and looking forward to connect.
Oh, love it. And by the way, everybody, leave in her links in the description below as well. But aside from that, I hope you guys enjoyed today's conversation. And if you did, you guys know the deal. Make sure you smash that like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon, because it helps out the YouTube gods, aka the algorithm, and really helps support the channel so we can continue to create awesome conversation pieces just like this one. So thank you again, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.